Romantasy has been a huge hype for a while now, but what I realized is that the word romantasy is often misused or is being misunderstood. Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about romance books, and I want to highlight the problem that we are having in the market at the moment, where romantasy is used because it's a big hype to describe a book, but turns out not every romantasy book is the same and has the same level of romance or the same level of spice in the book. So I wanted to break it down a little bit and talk about romance use in fantasy stories and how it differs throughout the different stories. To do that, I created 3 categories. I made them up. I don't know if they exist or what. But I find there's so many flavors of romance in romantasy stories that it's important to distinguish that and not just throw everything into the same bucket and just, market it because it's a hyped term right now. I get it from a marketing perspective, but as a reader, I find it very frustrating. So I want to talk about a couple of books that I enjoyed over the recent years, and I want to highlight the different aspects of romance in these fantasy stories, from stories where the fantasy part is definitely at the forefront and there's just some romance happening on the side, to on the totally opposite, where it's more important what happens in the sheets than outside of them. I want to start with fantasy books where the fantasy story is the main focus of the whole book. Yes, there's some romance happening in these stories, but the focus really is the fantasy story, the world, the magic system, the characters, all that good stuff. And I want to start with Kai Esso's Time Becomes Relevant, which is volume 1 in her Shazwick of Land series. That Kickstarter just ended. Official launch is on June 2nd. This is a Chinese immortal fantasy, which means the story centers around an immortal being, and we're following Magnolia. She is not the immortal being, but we're following Magnolia while she is still a child. That's how the story starts out. She is half human, half elf, and she lives with her elf mother. And then one day they're being attacked by enemies they thought long dead, and they kidnap the mother. So Magnolia has to pack up her things and move together with her human father to a different continent. There she's being greeted by a young boy who is Shaz in a Karaz's body. If you want to know what Karazes are, you have to read the book. It's such a cool magical race. My favorite part of the story, hands down. But yeah, she is greeted by Shaz, who is being her friend, and it's helping her to adjust to that new life. That's like really happening in the first 1 or 2 chapters, so I'm not spoiling anything. And then relatively quickly, we jump a little bit in time to follow Magnolia in her teenage years. Her father is now an important political figure on the continent. She herself as well. She's very important when it comes to the communication between the different lands and fractions and political parties. And the evil is stirring again. So her role is becoming even more important going forward. This is a really ambitious story, beautifully written, full of political intrigue, full of found family, with an intricate world, an intricate magic system, and all of that is definitely at the forefront of the story. But a big part of the story is the connection of Magnolia to that immortal being, and how the prophecy of them being together impacts everything that is happening in the story. It's a very subtle romance, lots of yearning and just, thinking about things, no spice at all. And again, it's a romance that is there to help with the plot, but it is not the plot of the story. The next book technically is a sci-fi, but who cares, right? I'm talking about Warehouse Dreams by Teresa Halvorsen. This is an X-Men inspired dystopian sci-fi with a magical school setting, but with a focus on the teachers, not the students. In this future, we have designed humans who can pay to help their children get specific traits, specific looks, etc. And then we have wildbreds who are born with superhuman abilities, like think telekinesis, that kind of stuff. And the school where the majority of the plot happens is a nonprofit that helps these wildbreds adjust to life, adjust to their abilities, and figure out life in a society that actually doesn't want them. What I love in particular about Warehouse Dreams is that it covers a lot of very, very heavy themes, but in a well-researched, well-written manner, and then lightens it up a little bit with a bit more spicy romance on the side. This is an enemies to lovers romance with, I believe, 2 or 3 spicy scenes. Somehow I always forget how many there are in the books after I read them. Also, I just did an interview with the author where we were talking a little bit more about the book. I'll put that down in the description below, so if you want to go check it out, please do so. The next book that I want to highlight with a fantasy first plotline are the Sanyare Chronicles by Megan Haskell, so technically a series, not just an individual book. This is a coming-of-age YA, actually leaning closer to new adult fantasy story where we follow Ree, who grew up in the upper realm. She is just a human, couple hundred years old, which actually makes her an outcast in that world. But nevertheless, she worked her way up in the messenger service and can now deliver messages across the different realms. And on her latest journey to the human realm, she is being attacked by enemies from the Shadow Realm out of nowhere. And instead of just accepting her fate, which would mean death because she was in contact with the enemy, she decides to travel to the Shadow Realm and figure out what happened. Why did they attack her? What is special about her? This is a really fun fantasy adventure with a feisty female character who doesn't stop just because something gets hard. It's an enemies to lovers story where she definitely wears the pants in that relationship. Lots of yearning. And then again, if I remember correctly, more closed door scenes. And then there were not that many either. So the focus is more on the yearning between the two and them getting together. There is an important plot part that is related to their relationship that I can't really talk about. So yeah, just read the series. The focus of the Sanyare Chronicles is definitely the 9 realms of the Fae world, discovering those, the magic system, following Ree as she is unraveling the political machinations that are happening in the world. With the added bonus that you get a lot of really cool fantasy elements like found family, vampires, dragon horses, pixie sidekicks, and so on. Let's move into the next category. That is the in-between world. Books where the fantasy story is as important as the romance itself. And I want to start with A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I always have to look up the title. It's way too long, by Sanko Mandana. This is one of the few trade published books that I have on here. This is more an urban fantasy. We are following the witch Mika, who lives in Great Britain. Witches live in secret. No one knows about them, and they can never meet. They can never socialize unless it's a meeting of their coven. To keep busy, Mika started a social channel where she's sharing witchy tips because no one is going to believe that witches even exist, right? It's just for fun. Turns out there's a family that does believe they are witches, and they hire her to train 3 young witches at their house in the middle of nowhere. And of course, nothing can go wrong, right? This is an enemies to lovers, slower burn romance with a lot of heart, found family tropes, and like a medium spice level, I would say. Next up is Nicolette Andrews' Dragon's Deception, which is book 1 in the Moonlight Dragon series. This is a dragon shifter were-dragon type of fantasy romance story. We follow Yearn, who is trying to solve the murder of her best friend. The problem is her mother is not leaving her alone and not helping her at all in achieving that goal. Instead, she tries to marry her off to an influential partner. Enter Erich, a prince in self-inflicted exile who is trying to find a cure for his curse, and he thinks the princess might be the one being able to help with that. So they fake being together, each with their own agenda, which leads to them discovering a deep-running conspiracy that actually involves both of them. My favorite about this story is not just the political conspiracy and all that fun stuff, but it's actually the way the magic system works, specifically how the were-dragon works and how you get to know the dragon inside Erich. This is, of course, a fake relationship trope with a grumpy to sunshine male character. We also have disability representation through the female main character, and also kind of a medium spice level. There's one scene towards the end. If you want to hear more about that, I'm actually talking with Nicolette on May 3rd in a live interview, so if you want to join me, go check down in the description for the link. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button while you're at it, and then join us as we talk about Dragon's Deception. The next book I want to talk about in the balanced fantasy romance bucket is Valeborn by Lorin Petrazilka, which is completely unique when it comes to the relationship. In this book, we follow Lily, whose best friend Josie disappeared a couple of years ago, but she found a new trail that leads her through a portal into the Fae world. As she arrives on the other side, Ophius, a confident and handsome Fae, takes her in and helps her adjust to her new abilities. Because, as it turns out, Lily is a Valeborn, so she has a bunch of magical abilities that she needs to learn how to deal with, and Ophius is showing her how to access them. Of course, nothing is as serene as it seems. And we pretty soon start a roller coaster of an adventure throughout the series. What I love most about it is that the yearning part and the pining and the getting together part is already solved in book 1, and then book 2 and 3 of the series are really more about the relationship itself. So we are seeing compromises being made. We are seeing how the characters learn to be in a relationship and to be together and to adjust their lives to all of the new things that are happening when you're becoming a couple. Something very unique that I haven't seen like this in other stories like this. Lots of great fantasy elements as well. Fays, obviously we're in a Fae world, but also elves. If you're geeky for languages and fantasy stories, this one might scratch that itch. And other than that, like a medium spiciness. Book 1 is relatively free, it's more yearning. And then book 2 and 3 has like 2-3 spicy scenes each, all open door. If you've watched this far, you are very likely interested in fantasy romance books, right? So I have a slightly different bookish recommendation for you, which is the app Yearn. That is an app with hundreds of ebooks and audiobooks, all focused around fantasy romance, romantasy, cozy romance, paranormal romance, from 0 to 5 spice levels. It's a brand spanking new app. They're here to tackle the big guys. Their focus is that everything is created without AI, and they have a vetting process to ensure that all the books they feature in their app also are written by humans and not by AI. I was part of their beta program, so I got a little bit of early access, but I've also just started using it and now have the opportunity to be an affiliate with them, which I'm super excited about. And I would love to hear from you what you think about this app. I left some more information down below, the link to their website, including a code if you're interested in trying it out for 50% off the first month. Go check out the description box and then come back to me. Tell me what you think about this app. Do you like the idea? Do you like the app itself? I would love to hear from you. I have 2 more books for you in a new category, and that category is the romance is definitely the more important part of this book. I want to start off with A Taste of Gold and Iron by Alexandra Rowland. This book has been out for a while. It actually was published before the big romantasy craze. Otherwise, I think this would have been marketed as a romantasy. It actually wasn't. It was marketed as a political intrigue type of fantasy story. And when I read it, like my first thing that I said is like, no. Yes, it's in a fantasy world, but it's really heavy on the romance. And the big part of the story is the relationship between the 2 main characters. This is inspired by the Ottoman Empire. We are following a young, shy prince who is trying to prove himself to the queen. He struggles with anxiety and he discovers a conspiracy within the guild. So he's trying to figure out what is happening there. He is accompanied by his brooding bodyguard, very important person, obviously. And then you also have a magic system in the story that is centered around like touching metal allows you to taste what type of metal it is. But again, the fantasy part is actually not that important in this story. The important part is the relationship between the prince and the bodyguard. This is a male-male romance, very slow burn, incredibly well done, lots of yearning and just, getting to know each other and all the good stuff that you want about a slow burn romance. Grumpy to sunshine, of course. And then I don't recall there being much spice. If it was closed door, I believe. But, if you're curious about that or if you're interested in that, better check other sources than me right now. And I couldn't have this section without a really spicy book, and I picked Shifter's Faded Summer by Ellie Hollis, which is a werewolf Omegaverse story. I'm pretty new to all of that, so I haven't read more than Ellie Hazelwood's Bride, which I actually didn't like that as much, and this one, which I liked a lot. This is about Summer, who is being held as a blood bank, essentially, in a vampire den, but she is about to become exclusive for the vampire prince. But before all of this can happen, the vampire den is being raided by werewolves, and she is being picked up and brought to the house of the werewolves. Turns out she's one too. So in the book, we are following her as she struggles with that reality, and then also with her attraction to Luca, who's taking care of her, and the alpha Kate, who she doesn't like at all. This is a why choose 5 out of 5 spicy romance, where the romance and, all that stuff is definitely the important part. But I also really enjoyed the surroundings, like the house that they were living in, the forest, all the werewolf details, and just her struggle with figuring out what her identity is, who she is. It's very well written, fast paced, super entertaining, and just a great, I read it in one night type of book. And just so you know what I have on my TBR for the near future, there are 3 more books that I wanted to share with you that I'm really, really excited about, starting with Of Flames and Fallacies by Courtney Wims. In this world, dragons are illegal, but our main character finds a dragon egg in her father's grave, and she embarks on a dangerous journey to bring the dragon to its own lands. The other one I'm excited about is Side Quest by Stephanie K. Clemens. This is, from what it sounds like, the perfect fantasy for us scroll-brained people who love the side quests more than the main journey. And then lastly, I'm excited for A Touch Unexpected by A.L. Rivers, which gives me a little bit of Sabrina the Little Witch vibes, more an urban fantasy. Sounds like our main character is protected by an enchantment, but at her 22nd birthday, something is going to happen, and it doesn't sound like it's going to make her life a lot easier. Do you need more fantasy romance recommendations? Were these not enough? Well, if that's the case, there's a playlist with all of my reviews for fantasy romance books. And then don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed this type of content. I'd love to have you around and see you on my next video. Till then, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Bye!